When it comes to famous Lee Sin players, we all know the big Korean names: Insect, Peanut, Rush, Dandy. But it's not just the best region that has the best Lee Sin players. If you remember the Gigabyte Marines, last year's international representatives from Vietnam, you'll remember their aggressive and sometimes cheesy strategies, and perhaps more importantly how surprisingly effective they were while doing it. And if you can remember that, you'll remember the core of that squad, their jungler Levi, and now he's since moved to NA and is spearheading 100 Thieves Academy team. He's looking pretty bloody good, honestly, not just in the competitive play, but also in solo queue. And even though he doesn't get as much attention, this Vietnamese import is one of the best Lee Sins in the world. How can I make that claim? Well, if you watched him, you know he's insanely mechanically gifted. But I suppose a more convincing argument is that he's currently sitting at the number 11 spot on the NA Challenger ladder with an 80% win rate on Lee Sin. And this is arguably an awful meta for Lee Sin, also in the RIP Lee Sin patch. But Levi, he has a very unique answer to the removal of Tragger's Knife, which I'll talk about a little later on. So, let me show you how Levi plays Lee Sin. Before we get cracking with it though, guys, I just want to apologize in advance. I know my voice probably sounds really weird and awful. I have been ill the past few days and I'm still sort of dying, but I'm not fully dead yet, so here we are. And also a quick apology because therefore this video was pretty delayed, which really sucks for me because now this stuff's kind of old news since Reddit got their grubby little hands on it. But either way, hopefully this video can be still useful as some sort of guide. My old man told me that the best place to start is either at the beginning or the place where you can stock up on Angel Delight for half price. I never really understood what he meant with that, so we'll just start at the beginning today. And that would be your runes. This is the page that Levi runs. It's more or less a pretty standard Lee Sin page. Domination primary with Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Zombie Wards, and a little bit of a curveball here, honestly. Ingenious Hunter as your last rune. This is the rune that gives you active items CDR. So Levi has chosen this, and I'll get into more details as to why a bit later on. Your secondary tree is Inspiration, you get free boots, that's less money you have to spend, and Cosmic Insight, which is all types of CDR. Let's move on from your runes to your build now. Levi always rushes Tiamat first. The biggest benefit of going Tiamat on someone like Lee Sin is it massively boosts your AoE jungle clears. This means he spends a lot less time actually in the jungle farming and more time running around and kicking people in the arse. After Tiamat, Levi mixes up the red smite and the blue smite. Sometimes he'll choose red, sometimes he'll choose blue. Levi obviously has his reasons for doing this, but as far as you're concerned, I think it's fair to say this is fairly preferential. After you finish off your warrior enchant, he'll go his tier 2 boots, Merch Reds or Ninja Tabby, and then he'll go for a black cleaver. Now that's his core item build, and for the last two items he gets, he'll either go Guardian Angel or Sterax. The order in which he gets these two items differs in his games, but whichever one he doesn't go for the fifth item, he'll get that one afterwards. What's also really cool to note about Levi's build is he's a really massive fan of what I believe the Queen refers to as sighty whitey seeing sticks. He'll buy at least one control ward every single recall. Usually it's just one on his first bag, and then after that it's between 2 to 3 every single time he goes back to spawn. So you can probably consider that the first part of Levi's answer to the removal of Tragger's Knife, but it goes a bit deeper than that as well. Ingenious Hunter and Cosmic Insight, the runes we talked about before, the active item cooldown runes, they don't just work for items, they work for trinkets as well. So essentially by taking these runes, Levi's trinket is off cooldown up to 45% earlier than it would be otherwise, which is pretty good answer for a Lee Sin who's lacking his ward hops after the removal of Tragger's Knife. There is also that added benefit of taking these runes because they synergize with your Tiamat too. I actually really like it because it reduces the cooldown from 10 seconds to like 6 seconds or so, which means you can get 1 or 2 extra Tiamat actives down in a fight. And that could make the difference, though I do feel like the rune choice is more of a thing for the trinkets than the Tiamat, but it's worth mentioning. So now that we are done with your setup, let's move on to the next one and talk about your playstyle. Levi's jungle route is the same basically every single game. He'll start bot side and get a leash on the buff, then do the wolves, then go for the top side buff, be level 3, and he'll gank. It's a pretty standard route, and Levi almost always gets early kills by either ganking top lane or counter ganking the enemy jungler. Outside of his early route, Levi is just quite simply a good jungler. I know this is the least helpful statement ever, so let me list some things that he does pretty well that you can learn from. Firstly, Levi taxes a lot. Not necessarily just straight up stealing farm, but after a gank, he will almost always shove a lane in under the tower. He'll do this so frequently, whether the gank was successful or not. It means that he never really loses out by ganking lanes because he's always at least getting something from it. Secondly, he counter ganks and reacts to plays very well. He's quite forceful and proactive at times, but a lot of his advantages come through cock blocking plays from the enemy jungler, or quite simply mopping up scrappy fights in lane. He's not afraid of running a long way to get a play to try and pick something up. Thirdly, he loves to lane gank. This allows him to avoid ward spots for a higher success chance. There's not really too much to say about this one. It's just a really good idea in general for junglers that don't want to be seen by those pesky sighty-whitey seeing sticks. And lastly, once Levi has an advantage in the game over the enemy jungler, he will invade them quite a lot. He's always pressuring, never letting the enemy jungler have an easy game. This works really well when you're playing Lee Sin because he's pretty bloody slippery when it comes to invades. He can steal camps really quickly and still be pretty safe while doing it. I would love to give you more information about how he plays team fights as well here, but Levi rarely has a game go longer than 25 minutes. He's just that bloody good, so I don't really get to see too many team fights coming out of him. But what I want to do here, guys, is just to give you a small kind of breakdown of one of Levi's games and just show you the core points of that game so we can try and get some real examples of what he's doing. The first play I want to show you from this game is a nice testament to how Levi gets advantages not just through being proactive and making his own plays, but also through being reactive and countering the enemy's plays. In this game here, his Sona mid lane is pretty low on health. So he reads there's most likely going to be a dive coming down. He counters his dive, sadly can't quite save his Sona. Gets close, but can't quite save her, but still gets something out of it. And he doesn't just go back to his jungle, he also goes to tax as well. However, he is met with the very common response of what happens when a jungler goes to tax. That is the anthem of when a jungler holds a lane. But still, even though his Sona doesn't want him to take too many minions, he still gets a little bit here and there, which improves his farm and his gold. The second clip I want to show you is a gank from our boy Levi. He goes into the mid lane, the Sona into the TF, and whereas the position of this lane makes it look like TF is pretty safe, because the Sona can have a one button setup and because Lee Sin is Lee Sin, he still goes to this lane. So that in itself is a way at which Levi gets that advantage by recognizing that's an easy lane to gank. But I want to take a look at the mechanics of this gank as well here, because he doesn't just throw the Q out, hit the Q, go in, all that malarkey. He hits the Q, jumps behind him, kicks him out, and then follows through with the Q. It's a little thing that makes a big difference. We talked about how Levi likes to lane gank as well, and that's especially powerful in the bot lane, where you have this control ward sitting in the first bush. Either way, he's waiting in this bush right now, waiting for his opportunity, and as soon as Morgana walks up, he pounces on her, pretty much assassinates her, and then sets his team up for the second kill onto Tristana as well. But I want to take a look at the mechanics here, because Levi does, again, very specific combo here that secures him this kill. He throws out the Q, wards, ward hops, auto, E, R, Q. Not only does this maximize the execution damage from his Q, but it also means that he lands on top of the Morgana after using his combo so he can finish her off. Levi's combos are just absolutely insane. He's so mechanically good on Lee Sin, but it's not just his mechanics where he's very good. Right here, he reads the play about the TF using his ultimate in the bot lane. You just saw the TF ult over his head there. Bear in mind, his Krugs and Chickens are both up here. He completely ignores those camps and he runs down bot to get the counter gank onto the TF ultimate. He ward hops to get a little bit closer, finishes off the TF very nicely, and then bam, a nice kick flash, sends Singed into the loving embrace of Garen, and they finish him off there as well. Nice macro, not just about your micro. Here we can see Levi's team fighting on the top side of the map around the Rift Herald, but Levi is nowhere to be seen. Where is he? Where is our favourite Lee Sin player? Oh, there he is. He's in the bot lane pushing with Garen. This is a nice example of where, as a jungler, you don't necessarily want to be running around and helping your team 24/7. Sometimes it's better to start your own fires than trying to put out all of the fires from the enemy team. And this is exactly what's happening here. Doesn't run topside, doesn't try and help his team, instead dedicates to playing the bot side, gets a tower, gets an inhibitor, I call worth. And the last clip I want to show you guys is a Baron play with the enemy junglers still alive. We love these in solo queue, right? If you're a jungle main, you love these ones. What I want to highlight here is his decisiveness and his commitment to turning on the enemy team whenever he sees an opportunity. Right there, he flashes out the pit to finish off the TF, and he's always looking at that Sejuani here. Even though they're going for the Baron, he's staring at the Sejuani. He wants to kill the Sejuani, and this is how you want to play Baron plays when the enemy jungler is still alive. Focus on getting that enemy jungler down, and then get your free Baron afterwards. Don't throw the game because it's easy to do that around the Baron pit. And for the last clip, I just wanted to throw in a really just amazing play from Levi. I think this is one of the best lead plays I've seen in my life. Just phenomenal mechanics. Phenomenal. And on that amazing clip, on that bombshell, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. Thanks so much for watching the video today, guys. I hope you liked it. Thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you liked it so much you want to see more from me. Most importantly, thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next video.